everyone, Nicole Schumann from PRNEWS here at CES, and I'm with Dan Yesenosky, head of comms at Razorfish, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what he's doing here, what his clients are doing here, and things we can learn and take away for the PR industry. So first off, Dan, what are your priorities as head of communications over at Razorfish?
Yeah, so I would say CES for me is really about networking. And so often I think whenever we as comms professionals come to an event like this, we're really focused on the coverage output. And I actually would argue that the relationships you build and just the FaceTime and the networking that you can do as a comms professional with journalists that are on site will provide you with a foundation for more story opportunities and coverage opportunities throughout the year and future events to come. So I would say for me, that's what I focus on, is how many people can I see, people I've seen at previous events, people I've worked with before, and how many new people can I meet. Maybe they're now new to one of the outlets that covers us, or they have a new beat that now makes them relevant for us. Those kinds of FaceTime touch points at an event like this, especially to start the year, are really, really advantageous. So for me, that's my priority. How can I be in front of as many people as possible to build those relationships and connections?
Well, that makes sense, because journalists might be overwhelmed right now at especially at a place like this with so much news, so much coverage. If they don't have time to do an article for you right now, and something you talk about might be beneficial to them in the long run. So you may hear from them again in the future. You never know. So that's good as far as timing goes. As we're saying, CES is massive, it's overwhelming for many attendees, but, I guess wondering from an agency level, how do you determine whether this is the right event for a client to go to, either on a big activation versus just taking a more strategic, focused approach? How do you decide what's right for them?
Well, I think it really depends on the brand and it depends on their goals. CES is a great event for many reasons. But what success may look like to one brand may look very different to another. And I think, for Razorfish in particular, we have clients that go very, very big at CES. We have other clients that don't. We have some clients that don't have a presence here at all. So it really just depends. I think for us, it's about understanding the goals, understanding the brand, having a great grasp of the event. Razorfish itself, just as an agency, I think, for us, this was not an event where we would do a big announcement, right? Like, as you said, it's very, very noisy, but it doesn't mean that it's not a place where we can be doing interviews, providing perspectives, getting a lay of the land of the latest in emerging tech, especially as an agency that prides ourselves in helping our clients understand the latest innovations, getting marketing transformation strategies set in place. So CES has a lot of advantages, of course, but as far as how you will approach it and what type of activations you may do, if any at all, I think it really just kind of depends on the goals and the brand itself.
Mm-hmm. And, we're talking about how big it is. PR people can feel overwhelmed coming here, but also journalists even more so. So I'm wondering, how do you approach the media in terms of being collaborative and helpful for reporters that, probably need as much help as possible during this event?
Yeah, the event's probably halfway over at this point. I'm sure you feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed as we're recording this right now. I would say PR people have to understand that it's a value exchange. It's a two-way street. The journalist is not doing you a favor by interviewing you and getting you coverage for your company. You also have to provide expertise, be a reliable, relevant source for them. And understand as well, look, journalists more and more are wearing a lot of different hats. They're not only writing, sometimes they're shooting videos, sometimes they're operating social media, sometimes they're editing, sometimes they're juggling multiple beats, sometimes they're writing for multiple publications. So I think just understanding the lay of the land and the grasp of responsibilities that are facing journalists and being as reliable as possible in providing them with timely responses, providing them with sources that will actually be useful, getting them the things that they need and the content that's relevant to them and their readers. Because again, I keep going back to this, but that will build the long-term relationship that will lead to further opportunities at events down the line, years down the line, CESs down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great media relations lesson for people to learn. I know you work a lot with your leaders at your organization, especially at events like this. How do you decide which speaking engagements or panel topics align best with your organization's goals or messaging?
Yeah. So what's interesting is I don't think the topics necessarily change very drastically. At the beginning of a year, we don't have a clean slate and say, okay, what are we going to talk about this year? It's a lot of what we've been talking about over the years, and it sort of just ebbs and flows and gradually evolves. So for us at an event like CES, it's a great event around technology, great event around innovation. So we have been speaking about AI, of course, no surprise there, how it impacts marketing, which is where my company sits in the marketing advertising space, talking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha, how those emerging generations will need to be approached whenever it comes to their unique consumer behaviors and the ways that they leverage technology as they engage with brands. Those are topics we've talked about at many events in many different ways, but at a CES, it's no different. So for us, in a way, it's about consistency, but CES provides us with a really nice stage and a really prominent tentpole event at the start of a new year to have a presence here speaking about those things and continuing to have that drumbeat.
That's great. Also, you've been walking around, things like that, talking to people. Have you seen any communications trends emerging so far at this event?
Communications trends, I wouldn't say so. The way that I think about it is, this is a technology product event. What I'm thinking about is less of, what may other PR and comms pros be doing here, and more so, as I'm seeing the technology and I'm seeing the products, how could that end up influencing comms professionals and the way we work going forward? So it's, for me, almost, will any of the technology here be at a level where it is then creating a comms trend down the line in the way we work, or in the way we engage with journalists, or in the way we have an announcement or have an activation or something like that in the future? That's what I think will be really interesting as we get through 25 and into 2026. Do any of these, emerging innovations and technologies trickle into the way we work in comms roles?
Absolutely. And last question, it's a pretty general one. What's one tip you have for PR pros that are working at an event like this?
Yeah. Well, I think the obvious ones around wear the comfortable shoes and, try to pace yourself are obvious. But I think I would really go back to what I said before around don't treat the event as a 1 week, solo moment of this is whenever I'm trying to get coverage and CES is only about this particular week. An event like this sets the foundation and builds the relationships and creates the momentum going forward. So for me, I would say my advice is don't worry about if you didn't get a bunch of coverage this week. Focus on what you've done this week and how it can lead to a lot of coverage in the future and a lot of opportunities in the future. But I would also say, look, this is a big event. CES is a beast. If you can conquer this, you can probably conquer just about any event. So take everything you're doing with some pride. Don't be too hard on yourself. This is a special place, but it's also a challenging place. So if you can have success here and you can get through the week, you're battle tested for the future.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for your time. We appreciate having you. And thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you soon.